Daf Samach Hayam at base. We'll begin Samach Hayam at Aleph, 2 lines from the bottom. Continuing on with Avud Shmuel, he did not permit certain things for his daughters. So one of the other things he did not permit was Leishavek Lo Ganean Gabi Hadari. He did not let the young girls sleep together. Let's say that supports what Rav Huna says. Rav Huna said, that women who rub their bodies together, that they get the hana, the pleasure from the warmth of their bodies, they rub their bodies together. Psula asla kahuna. They're apostle for kahuna, Rashi says, meaning for a kohen gadol. A kohen gadol has to marry a psula. Now, even though this is not a maisa bia per se, however, since it is derech znos, then he answered it for a kohen gadol. So let's say that Avod Shmuel, that's why he answered it, because he considers it a derech znos, even though it's not znos mamish, and therefore he answered it. Now, even though there was no kohen gadol in his time, but since you see that it's derech znos and it would be also for a kohen gadol, he answered it for his daughters. Gemara says, Loi. So it's not necessarily so. Perhaps he does not hold like Rav Huna, but why did he answer it for them? He answered it because he did not want them to get accustomed to a foreign body, that they would get accustomed to being together with another person, another body. That might lead, chas v'sholom, to znos with a man. So therefore he answered them to be together like that. The third thing he did was Nisan. He made for them mikvois on the days of Nisan. And the Gemara said then he made mats for them b'mei Tishrei. Misai leil Rav Tetzavaya to Rav Damar Rav Mitra b'Ma'arov. If it rains in Eretz Yisrael, Sada Rav Pras. A proof to it, an edus for it, a witness to it, is the water level of the river Pras, of the Euphrates. That if it rains, if there's a lot of rain in Eretz Yisrael, a lot of rains, or there's a lot of snow and it melts, so in Nisan you have the melting snow, you have the water levels are very high. The river, the Pras, the water level will increase due to this rainwater. So if it's a high water table in Belvel, they know that in Eretz Yisrael there was a lot of rain that winter. So what's the Indian over here? The concern is that if there's rainwater, now rainwater is kosher for a mikveh. However, a mikveh has to be mikveh mayim, has to be stationary, not flowing. If it's a spring, it's a mayan is matar, and a mikveh is matar. It's a mayan, a mikveh mayim. But a mayan can be flowing. A mikveh has to be stationary. So if the water is the natural source of water of the springs of the river's flowing, it's kosher for tefillah. But if it's as a result of rainwater, it has to be stationary, it has to be in a mikveh. Now he was concerned that perhaps there'll be an account of it's the end of the rainy season, at the end of the winter, perhaps that the majority of the water in the river will be from rainwater, and the river is flowing, and therefore we're afraid that the spring water will be bottled to the rainwater. It will be considered like rainwater, and rainwater has to be stationary, not flowing, and therefore will be possible for tefillah. So therefore he made for them mikvois, he made for them pools or pits of water that are either gathered from rainwater or channeled from the river but were stationary. And he then made the mikvois for them in Nisan, that they should be toivel davka in the mikvois and not in the river, because the river was flowing. Then the other part of it is he made for the mats, he made Tishrei. In Tishrei, in the months of Tishrei, he allowed them to use the river because it was after the summer and it was a dry season, so there's no concern that there'll be a majority of rainwater. The concern was, however, the bed of the river was muddy, and if they would be toivel in the river, perhaps there will be mud that will be stuck to their feet, and it will be a chatzitza, and will not allow the water to penetrate. It will be a chatzitza, and will passel the tefillah. Therefore, he made mats for them, that they should stand on the mats, and their feet wouldn't get muddy, so they wouldn't have this problem with the chatzitza. So Somer Shul Yirba Neitrim Lazoich. Upliga the Shmuel, but Shmuel argues on that. Shmuel argues and said we're not concerned that rainwater would be the majority. Domer Shmuel Nar Mekif Mivrach. The water, the level of the water is primarily from the underground sources, from the springs, from its natural sources, not from the rainwater, and therefore you don't have to be concerned that you may nisan to be a majority of rainwater which is not mitayar b'zaychlin. But there seems to be a machlek. Shmuel in himself seems to be a stira. Tamar Shmuel ein amayim mitayar b'zaychlin. You see from the statement over here that Shmuel is concerned about the rainwater being the majority, because he says that flowing water is not matar elapras tishrei belvad, only tishrei after the summer, the dry season. There we're not concerned about the rains, but otherwise we are concerned about the rains. So it seems to be a stira in Shmuel ad Shmuel. So the Mishnah says, that the woman can now wrap around the cloak on the nut. She can use a nut or a stone, and she can wrap a corner of her garment on it, make it as a button, take a strap, and wind it around that, and this button to hold their garment together, to use it, the cloak, to use it as a clasp for the cloak. So the Mishnah said that a Ravis Yaitzis Ru'ulas, Umadais Prufais, and Madais could go out Prufais. The whole arm should be Chamayva. Then it says Peirefes al Evan, Val Egas al Ambeya. Then she could be Peirefes, she could wrap it around on the nut or on the stone. But then it says, But Lecharchila to begin with on Shabbos, you can't do it. So the Gemara is going to ask that how could that be? It seems to be a steer. Meaning, it says already that Madois Prufis. That the Madois can go out with the stone or the nut that's in their garment to use it as a button. And then it continues and says that it says Peirefes 11. So Peirefes 11 would seem to therefore clearly indicate not only that you can go out with it, we know that already because the Mishnah says that Madais are Prufis. So that means to say, it would seem to indicate Peirefes 11 is that she can even wind it and fold it around the nut, even to begin with on Shabbos. She can take a nut on Shabbos and take the corner of her garment and wrap it around the nut. But then it says, then on Shabbos she can't do it lecharchila. So frankly, Gemara of Amud Reisha Peirefes, but the Reisha says Peirefes that she can do it. Omer Abaya Seifa Asalamat. The Seifa, when it says b'Shabbos, is talking about a coin, and it's a separate issue over here. It's nothing to do with the problem of carrying or the problem of making a garment. It's a muksa de geshaila. A coin is muksa. So unless it was used as a button previously, unless it was used as a button prior to Shabbos, to take the coin and to use it now as a button on Shabbos to begin with, it's also because the coin is muksa. By a nut or a stone, now even though a stone is muksa, but if the person designates it for that purpose, even though it wasn't used yet for that purpose, it's no longer muksa. So the stone is muksa because it has no purpose. But if a person designated that for that purpose, it's no longer muksa. So then to begin with, one can take the stone and wrap the clothing around it, and certainly with a nut. But a matbeya is muksa because it's being oimed to use not as a button, it has value. It's to be used as a coin, as currency. So just by thinking on designating it for an alternate purpose, it still retains its status as muksa. It only now has a new status and is no longer muksa only when it's already used, when it's used prior to Shabbos for an alternate use. Then it assumes it attains a different purpose and it's no longer muksa. So that what the Mishnah says, is talking specifically about the matbeya, the coin, because it's muksa. Can a woman make a haroma, a subterfuge? Can she make a haroma, meaning her son is out on the street. She wants to take a nut tip. can't carry, it's also to carry. Can she now use the knot as a button and use it as a clasp and therefore be able to wear it and come out to her son in order to give them the knot? Now, really, she's doing this as a harama. She really is not intending to, doesn't really need it as a button for her cloak, but she really only wants to take the stone, the nut rather, to her child. But now she's using it as a button and wearing it derech malbush, which is not carrying, so that's mutter. Or do we say no? Since the ultimate purpose is to bring the nut, that it's aser midrabanan to carry it in that manner because it has the appearance of carrying of itzal. You can ask it according to both mandam, even the mandam who says marimim or the one who says not marim. Now we have the Mishnah on Daf Kuchov talks about if there's a fire, that the Chachamim answered saving unlimited amount of items from the fire because they were afraid that since Adam Bol Amamoina, he'll be so preoccupied and he'll be so nervous and he'll forget himself, and we're afraid he'll put out the fire. So they limited the amount of items that one can save from the fire because of this concern. Now the question is, what about clothing? Is there a limit on the number of items of clothing that one can wear and carry out of the fire, or there's no limit? So that's the machlekes. One mandomer says that there's no limit. Since we don't allow you to carry it out from the fire, only to wear it, the very fact that person is wearing it and not carrying it, that itself is a reminder, and the person therefore will not come to put out the fire, so there it is mutter without limitation. Now, the mandomer says no, it's also, we're afraid that he is wearing it and in a manner that he normally wouldn't, then it has the appearance of carrying it even though it's not, and it'll come to carry. So Tiboy Lamandamar Marimim Bidleka Tiboy, according to Mandamar, that you are allowed to be Marim Bidleka and wear unlimited amount of clothing, even though he obviously doesn't need that amount of clothing for his own personal use, but you're allowed to do it. Really, maybe I'll tell you that fundamentally we should ask her, because he normally doesn't wear that number of clothing. Why do we allow it over there? Because we're afraid that if you don't give this person an avenue to save his items, we're afraid that he'll intentionally put out the fire. So we gave him a certain leeway and we gave him this avenue to save it. But otherwise, normally, if it wouldn't be an emergency, an extreme situation like a fire, then we wouldn't do it. But over here, to bring the nut for the child, if we didn't allow it in this manner, we're not concerned that she's going to intentionally take the nut and bring it out to her child. Or perhaps we say the other way. Or perhaps the opposite. Even according to the Mandamer, it says it is not permitted to be marmid leika. You cannot use this trick. You cannot wear this unlimited amount of clothing for the leika because a person normally doesn't wear that amount of clothing. He wears the clothing that's normally needed. He doesn't wear one coat or one jacket on top of another jacket on top of another jacket. That's not the normal derech malbush. That's derech vayson. Now, even though it's not carrying the deraisa because he's wearing it, but it's the way a person would transport items. For instance, Rashi says by mechiksus, by a seller of garments, then they used to wear one on top of the other. The salesman, the traveling salesman, used to wear it in that manner. So therefore, it's derech haitzobakach, and that's why they answer it, because it has the appearance of carrying and it will lead to other carrying. Aval hacha ein derech haitzobakach, but over here she's using the knot as a button, and that's not the manner of carrying at all. It's a manner of wearing it. Maybe I would say that it is permitted over here. It's take. We don't resolve the question.